No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken Live episode number 41. Angela Rayner has been the Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom for just 56 days. During that time, she has studiously avoided scrutiny, refusing media appearances about Two Tier Keir's response to the so-called riots, the abominable scrapping of the winter fuel payment to pensioners, and plans to destroy pubs by banning smoking in beer gardens. But at least we know now that she's having a good time and not taking the job too seriously at all. There's Rayner raving at one of the most expensive clubs in Ibiza overnight, where her bottle of water cost a cool £11. That's footage taken by the celebrity Denise Van Outen. Now, in my digest next, I'll argue Rayner is taking the piss, and I will hit out at the MSM's two-tier approach to holding this government to scrutiny. Do you remember the chaos that was unleashed in the MSM when Nigel Farage dared to travel to America for the RNC just after the assassination attempt on Donald Trump? Then my superstar panel weigh in, and today it's a great lineup. Former Reform UK Deputy Ben Habib and former UKIP Deputy Rebecca Jane. What a combo. Also on the way, Father Calvin Robinson quits the UK to avoid Starmer's tyranny.
But I think that's been accelerated, actually, by the current state of affairs in the United Kingdom, in that it doesn't feel like people are ready to fight yet. There aren't enough people awake yet.
And Lady Colin Campbell has all the insight into Prince Harry's shock UK reunion with Prince William, as he made the last-minute decision to travel from Montecito to attend the funeral of their uncle after all. Then, in the uncancelled after show today, much more major royal news from Lady C, without any big tech censorship. That's going to be something you can watch on our website, www.outspoken.live. It's a safe space, free of censorship. Your support at just £5 a month gives you 30 minutes of extra content every single weekday and allows us to continue making Outspoken. Let's go. After police arrested an 11-year-old boy for his apparent involvement in the so-called riots in front of left-wing TV cameras to try and show off to the world, Elon Musk once again did something the British MSM is too gutless to do. Speak out. What has happened to the UK, he asked. And I think that's a good question. Woke tyranny is descending on this place, but the establishment and elites pretend it's business as usual. Cue the Deputy Prime Minister for just 56 days, Angela Rayner, a woman who has completely disappeared from public view and avoided any form of scrutiny as her boss Two Tier Keir warns of doomsday coming for all of us, turning up in Ibiza, raving into the early hours of one of the most expensive party clubs on the island, where her bottle of water costs a cool £11. Watch this.
Makes sense. We said that we would still be friends, but I looked and I was glad that it was over.
Okay, firstly, the dad dancing was cringe. We agree on that, right? But more seriously, what a piss take. It's not that I think politicians shouldn't go on holiday. Do not get me wrong. But this woman has barely been in post as our Deputy Prime Minister, for God's sake. She is taking away pensioners' winter fuel payments. So that sort of display is beyond tone deaf and arrogant. Not to mention the fact that she is enjoying herself at a nightclub when her government, just this week, revealed plans to destroy British hospitality with an outdoor smoking ban. And where's the MSM, who hounded Nigel Farage and still do any time he steps foot outside of Clacton, even, by the way, when he flew to the RNC to support his friend Donald Trump after he was very nearly assassinated? But all of this always comes back to Farage and the so-called far-right bogeyman.
I am worried about the far right. I'm worried about populism and nationalism and the politics of the easy answer, the snake oil, if you like. And I think it's very important that we have a debate about how we confront that. My own personal view is that through delivery, through showing that there are progressive democratic answers to the many challenges we face is the way forward. But yes, that's a discussion that I'm very keen to have because I think it's a very real threat. I am worried.
I would like him to define the far right, actually. Does he mean Nigel? A party that millions and millions of people voted for at the last election through the Reform UK vehicle? Well, Farage responded.
Plus the genuine concerns in Britain about the rapidly rising population. I think this is an attempt to try to get the narrative out there that if somehow you think immigration's a really important issue, you shouldn't be thinking like that, because that's the territory of the bad dudes. That's the territory of the far right. Plus the
And I think the government has reason to be terrified. Because while Starmer chooses to ignore the concerns of mass migration and instead demonise anyone who tries to raise this as a cause for our decline, astonishing new figures have shown today why we need to be desperately concerned. Check this out. The record levels of joblessness among migrants to the UK is costing us £8.5 billion per year. That's twice the level of the axed winter fuel allowance. Asylum, by the way, on top of that, costs an extra £6.6 billion a year. And as the brilliant Conservative Post have pointed out in a major new campaign, over 90% of immigrants consume thousands more in public services than they pay in. That means every year of mass migration is adding almost 10% to our long-term GDP. Yet the OBR looks at all the benefits of mass migration and none of the costs. So Conservative Post is now predicting that mass migration will bankrupt, listen to this, bankrupt the entire country by 2030, leading to a Greek-style crash with unpaid salaries, defaulting debt and mass unemployment. And check out this statistic from Andrew Hunt, the author of Better Value Investing. He writes, we are now hounding out more visas for Somali family members than we are to physicists, chemists and biologists from the entire world combined. This is in spite of the fact that Somali immigrants are 8 times more likely to be convicted of serious crimes than the native population. Meanwhile, have you heard about Operation Scatter? So this is the plan to see migrants placed in middle-class towns and villages up and down the country. And according to locals in certain areas, it is continuing at pace. Watch this.
Operation Scatter, which consists of dispatching the illegal migrants all across the UK. Well, I saw the reality of it this morning in my area. So it's not immediately in my area, but I walk my dog in that particular area from time to time. And I saw a bus of migrants, everybody going into the local hotel. And if you think that this is only going to be in the poor areas, you're very mistaken, because this hotel is on a street where all the houses are between 5 and 10 million pounds. So this is not going to be just, in poor areas. It's going to be everywhere where the government finds space. So you're just going to see your reality change.
So I really hope, when I've put all of that context together, you can understand why I think it's a disgrace that Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, for 56 days is raving in Ibiza. Let me bring in my superstar panel. And what a lineup to end the week. 2 former 2ICs who should probably really be running the show, right? Ex-Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib, and the ex-deputy leader of UKIP, Rebecca Jane. So, Ben, am I being too harsh on Angela Rayner here?
I think the really upsetting thing about Angela Rayner is not so much that she's on holiday in Ibiza, but that she is the Deputy Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. I find that much more offensive. And indeed that her boss, Keir Starmer, is the Prime Minister. I mean, you've exposed extremely well in your opening soliloquy, the damage these people are doing to the country, and they're doing it willfully. And as Nigel put it, the bad dudes are called the bad dudes. They're called the far right because anyone who challenges the received orthodoxy that is espoused by Keir Starmer and his absent deputy are categorized in a way to discredit them. And what easier way to discredit a whole body of British people than to label them as far right? And when you've done that, it's a hop and a skip to saying that they're racist, xenophobic, prejudiced. And I don't know if you picked up on the use of his word progressive democracy. The two words almost stand in opposition. When you're progressive, what he means by a progressive is the progressive discrimination in favor of minorities. Now, the whole point about democracy is that you should be making policies for the settled majority. Progressive and democracy stand in opposition. And I think part of the problem that we've got at the senior most level in governance in this country is that they see everything through a prism of the promotion of minority interests, the celebration of minority ethnicities, their cultures, their religions, their sexual preferences, the whole LGBTQ thing. They see that as their deliverance of democracy, when actually the reality is that the championing and celebrating of this ideology actually stands in opposition to democracy. And of course, they also stand, as I've mentioned, I think before to you, Dan, they stand in opposition to nation states. Mm-hmm. They see nation states as an impediment to the spreading of their global order, global prosperity, governance through international unaccountable institutions such as the European Union, for example, or the European Court of Human Rights and all of this. So if you have nation states with borders, with their own democracies, genuine democracies, that's all a bit troublesome because they can't deliver their progressive anti-state ideology. And Starmer and Angela Rayner, they are the culprits. Absolutely. I'm glad you put that photograph of him up, taking the knee to Black Lives Matter. But they're the culprits because they are the ones who stand against the British people. They're the ones who stand against the very existence of the nation state of the United Kingdom. If Starmer had his view, we would be governed by international order.
Yes,
not
Davos over Westminster, remember?
Davos
he
over
actually
Westminster.
said it.
And
he said it.
He said it. I accuse Starmer and his deputy of being anti-British. They stand against the United Kingdom. And I'm going to keep saying that until the penny drops right across the 68 million people who are resident in this country.
Well, I think people are fast getting it, actually. I think they are. I mean, you've got to admit, Rebecca, it's very odd that she has got this job after such a long time against all odds. Starmer never wanted her to have it. She basically refused to go. And the party, because the party is so far to the left, backed her. And then within 56 days, we've seen her do absolutely nothing, say absolutely nothing. And then this embarrassing video is mortifying the UK around the world.
It's embarrassing, isn't it? I mean, what is she wearing for a start-off? What has she done?
You're allowed to say that, Rebecca.
Like,
I don't know if Ben and I are.
I love a red dress. But I'm sorry, you look like you've literally gone from the office to Ibiza and your phone around your neck. She's an embarrassment. And this is who we've got in charge of our country. This is madness. I mean, to be fair, I'm going to keep saying this, and I agree with everything that Ben said. I just sit there and I nod because every time I always agree with everything that Ben said. But I am going to say this. who actually in this country actually genuinely voted because they wanted Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner at the head of our country? Nobody. I don't care what you say. Nobody actually voted for them. They voted for the Labour Party because it was the best of a bad bunch of people and because the Conservatives had done so much damage and Reform didn't have long enough to get the traction behind them. Nobody actually really wanted these two morons in charge of the country. And she proves it perfectly that she doesn't care about us. She doesn't care about Britain. Everything that Ben just said, neither of them, they are anti-British, which makes perfect sense why she's taken herself off to Ibiza.
Yeah.
She can stay there, actually.
Oh, God. I don't think they're going to want too much of that dancing, to be perfectly honest. And you've also got to see the irony that there she is having a great time in a place that really focuses on the hospitality industry, when the Labour Party has made an announcement this week, well, not a formal announcement, but have confirmed that they are going to scrap the ability to even smoke outside in a pub beer garden. This is a plan we have learned today through the Times newspaper that was personally pushed by Christopher Whitty. There's that guy again, remember him from the pandemic, getting involved in every aspect of our life. Just before you react, Ben, this was Nigel Farage in the boozer last night having a smoke.
Protest fags.
Well, it's not a protest. I mean, this is what I do every day. And the Prime Minister wants to criminalise me. And the danger of it is that they did this in Australia. They made smoking almost impossible. They tax cigarettes to the extent where they're now £35 a packet. So the criminal gangs now don't bother with cocaine. Forget that. Cocaine's boring. Cigarettes are very exciting. And so they run the whole tobacco industry. Shops everywhere sell cigarettes under the counter. Hairdressers sell them. Newsagents sell them. And you've now got gang warfare. There have been 97 firebombing arson attacks in Melbourne alone in the last 2 years. So if you take a legal activity and you effectively criminalise it, you hand it literally into the hands of the bad guys. I wonder whether the Labour Party have thought that through, or frankly thought anything through. I bet they haven't.
But Ben, what's your take on this one?
Well, Nigel makes a very important point that actually, if you force it underground, you're going to criminalise it. You're going to create a job for our already stretched criminal justice system, which can't cope with other things. He could have gone on to say that it's paradoxical, if not ironic, that every 5 yards you take now in London or any other urban place in the United Kingdom, you can smell weed all over the place, which is already illegal. But they haven't stamped on that. Frankly, I'd rather sit in the beer garden of a pub with a pint and a fag. In my case, perhaps a cigar if I'm, had too much to drink. I'd rather do that than sit cross-legged or on a park bench smoking a filthy, horrible little spliff, But the bigger point here, I think, is the nanny state, the ever-creeping dictatorial nanny state, which is making decisions on our behalf, telling us that we aren't able to judge what is risky, what is bad for us, that they will do it for us. They will force us to behave in a particular way. And, again, it's eye-bobblingly crazy that they are stamping down on cigarette smoking while we've got knife crime through the roof, while we've got illegal migration through the roof, while we've got an economy on its back, all these major issues that we need our government to grapple with are being put on a back burner, and they put this out there, as if it's their St. George in pursuit of a dragon. Well, I can tell them killing the tobacco industry is not a dragon. What they're doing is killing actually something that has been part of our social fabric for thousands of years. People have, done something, smoked something. Let them get on with it. It's not damaging anyone.
No, indeed. And just before you come in, Rebecca, I wanted to talk about the way that the mainstream media have managed to completely divert the criticism over this issue to attack a Conservative MP. Now, Esther McVeigh, friend of mine, I think she's a really good woman. She posted on X First, they came for the communists and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the Jews and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me and there was no one left to speak out for me. Pertinent words regarding Starmer's smoking ban. Now, we know that is obviously in reference to the famous poem. Thankfully, Esther has stood by that post. She isn't giving in. She's not going to delete it, and she's been very strong on that, actually, which I really support. She said, it's not my tweet people should be outraged about, but Starmer lying to get into power and then taking people for fools, and I completely agree with that. But you wouldn't believe it, on Woke ITV last night, they decided that this was the story. They actually start by saying the smoking ban's great, everyone loves it, but the real controversy is Esther McVeigh's post on X. Watch this.
Now, the reaction from drinkers there was mostly positive, but for Tory politicians, it was rather different. And Jasmine is here to talk about all this, in particular, former Minister Esther McVeigh posting a poem on social media evoking the Holocaust. Now, I've seen politicians saying some strange and one might argue stupid things in my time, but blimey, talk us through it.
Yeah, so she's been roundly criticised for the post on social media. The Health Secretary was tweeting, he told her to, quote, get a grip. He also pointed out that the smoking legislation was in Labour and Tory manifestos, and the Board of Deputies of British Jews, they've commented, they described her remarks as ill-considered and repugnant. They've called on her to apologise and delete the social media posts, and in the coming hours we can expect perhaps more reaction from Labour and Tory MPs on this. And I think more generally,
and Paul Brand, the Tory witch hunter at Woke ITV, was posting on this all day yesterday. Are they ever going to move on, Rebecca, and realise that actually there's corruption, there's cronyism within the Labour Party, and it's actually the Labour Party that's now in charge?
No, they won't ever. No, they'll never recognise that. Don't be ridiculous, Dan. It's just, that's never going to be a thing. However, I am a little bit different on this one with the smoking ban situation.
Oh, good. Go on.
Okay, so obviously, so what they're mainly talking about is banning smoking in outside places,
yes,
not banning smoking as a whole. However, obviously, we've had all of Rishi's ridiculous nonsense law idea of how to phase it out, which was just nonsense. I'm actually in favour of it. I like it. I don't take the stance that it's telling people what to do. I really, really do despise the government telling people what to do and how we should behave. And if they were talking about completely banning smoking, then sure, I'd be on this bandwagon. But they're talking about it outdoors, and I don't see any harm in that. Let people smoke in their houses, do whatever they want to their health. But when they're outdoors, it can actually still affect them. And whilst we're here talking about it within pubs and licensed restaurants and all the rest of it, I'm somebody who worked in the hospitality industry back when smoking was a thing indoors, and it made me incredibly ill to the point where I actually had to leave the industry because of that. And they said back then that it was going to absolutely kill off the industry. It was going to kill off hospitality. It didn't. It really had very little effect. What killed off the hospitality industry, well, not entirely, but was the 24-hour licensing. So I know we've gone off on a bit of a tangent here, but I don't actually hear many people on our side of politics actually saying that they support this ban. I don't support it's come from Starmer. I don't support anything that they say. But as a human, for me, I do agree with it. I do like it. But I think we've gone far enough and they shouldn't be banning everything altogether.
See, I can't stand smoking, but I feel like this is a really good compromise, and it always has been a really good compromise. And the problem is, all you're going to do is push smoking underground. And I feel like, come on, taking away the smoking area, it's just, it's too much for me. But it's not just two-tier media coverage that we're now dealing with, two-tier healthcare. So Jess Phillips, the Home Office Minister, has revealed today, and I'll read this to you, describing a distressing episode when she was having trouble breathing. My lips had gone blue and I couldn't breathe, she recalled. Phillips explained that she had sought urgent treatment at an A&E in a Birmingham hospital. She was greeted by scenes of appalling overcrowding. I have genuinely seen better facilities, health facilities, in war zones and developing countries around the world, the minister continued. Nevertheless, eventually she got to the front of the queue, but this, she said, was undoubtedly for two reasons. I got through because of who I am. Also, the doctor who saw me was Palestinian, as it turns out. Almost all of the doctors in Birmingham seem to be. While in opposition, Phillips resigned from Labour's front bench to vote in favour of a ceasefire in Gaza 5 weeks after Hamas terrorists killed 1,200 Israelis and took another 120 hostage. Her vote, she said, was the other reason that she received preferential treatment. He was sort of like, I like you. You voted for the ceasefire. Because of that, I got through quicker. Ben Habib, so are we thinking now that Jewish folk in Birmingham are not receiving the same health care as Jess Phillips? And shouldn't this be considered a real outrage rather than something that she seems to be celebrating to promote her book, even though she's now a Home Office minister?
Well, I completely agree with you. And, you know, many of us in politics have bemoaned the fact that sectarianism is back in political debate. People are standing on sectarian tickets in order to get elected. And now we're seeing it playing out in the health service, that if you have a particular view on politics, you may or may not get treated. And God forbid that you're of the wrong religion or, you know, wrong color or whatever it may be. I mean, that is actually that Palestinian doctor, if he treated her the way he did, in part because of her political disposition, would suggest to me that he's actually verging on, deep prejudice and a breach of his Hippocratic oath. And he should be taken to task. All these laws that Starmer's brought in or was bringing in order to shut down debate ought to be used, I think, to challenge this doctor on his ethics.
Indeed. And Rebecca, imagine how her Jewish constituents feel. Imagine how they feel. She doesn't seem to care about them, does she? Because she needs the Muslim vote. But imagine how you're feeling right now if you were a Jewish person in Birmingham and you're concerned about even receiving hospital treatment now.
Yeah, it's terrible. And Ben obviously just said about he should be taken to task. He should be fired. Like, this is completely unacceptable, and that should absolutely... Part of me doesn't believe it. Part of me thinks it might be being said for publicity and attention. But if it is true, he needs to be sacked, because there's one basic right in this country that everybody who is a citizen here should be entitled to. That's equality in healthcare. Like, our healthcare system is bad enough as it is. Why on earth she'd even put that out baffles my brain, because there's no good that can come of that. If she thinks it's something good, I think we need to probably be sending her to a different department to get a bit of a check over, because she should clearly see that's completely wrong.
Yeah.
It's illegal and immoral.
She is intellectually very challenged, of course.
Well, she is. She has been. Because I was just going to say, I absolutely believe it. But people think, and Jess Phillips believes, that different rules apply to her. Do you remember during the so-called riots when she was trying to defend the Muslim gang who had who threatened a Sly News camera crew and threatened to slash their tyres, and she defended them. So certainly she's the ultimate example of two-tier coverage. Now, some major news from one of our Outspoken family members. Father Calvin Robinson has announced today on X some personal news. It is with a heavy heart that I announce I am leaving the United Kingdom. Starmer's dark satanic mills are not for me, but I will be back. For now, it is time to regroup. I will not cease from mental fight, nor shall my sword sleep in my hand. And he spoke about his decision on his Lotus Eaters show. Watch.
But I think that's been accelerated, actually, by the current state of affairs in the United Kingdom, in that it doesn't feel like people are ready to fight yet. There aren't enough people awake yet. It feels like in other parts of the world, there are people that still believe in freedom and still believe in Christ and are willing to fight for what's right. And I'm hoping that in joining them and becoming a soldier among many, that we can regroup and we can build an army. I'm speaking metaphorically, but we need to be stronger as Christians, as Brits, as Englishmen. We're not there yet. And so I will make a stand in the next general election. But in the meantime, I'm going to work as a full-time parish priest in a parish elsewhere. London is no longer safe. I have moved out of London, and I'm a nomad at the moment, floating around without a home. But I've been offered a home, and I'm going to go and serve and minister to good people, good faithful people, and hopefully come back with stronger and with more encouragement and not on my own. At the moment in England, it feels very much that there are so few of us that we're on our own. And
Ben Habib, I know a lot of people, a lot of very good people who this country cannot afford to lose, who are having exactly those considerations at the moment. What do you make of Father Calvin's decision?
Well, it's interesting. I am very disappointed that he feels he has to leave the country. I've looked across the globe for various reasons. I can't actually find a country that's better than the United Kingdom. I mean, there are ones with lower tax rates, there are ones with better law and order and so on, but they come at the cost of your democratic voice in a way that we at least haven't got to so far yet in this country. And, you know, I actually think all of Western civilization is being challenged. But he is right. He is right that the British people are very slow to react, and I think it's part of our DNA. You know, when we're moved to queue, aren't we? We're quite a timid nation, if you like, and I think that's a good thing in many ways because we have a largely peaceful democracy, and I wouldn't like to see us turn into the kind of French dystopia that you see on the Champs-Élysées every time they have a disagreement with their government. But we do need a popular movement. I said this last night, actually, on another show with Jacob Rees-Mogg, actually. I said, you know, we need a popular movement now in this country because we've got 5 years of a majority in Parliament that we just can't challenge through the electoral system. So we do need a popular movement of the people to challenge Starmer. What Starmer is doing is deeply damaging to this country on every front. And he's revealed himself in 56 days. So we do need to get people out, to awaken people, to get them out, get them on the streets in a peaceful way. I don't want to be arrested for advocating violence. I'm not advocating violence. Get them out in a peaceful way and make it absolutely known to the government that the British people are not with him in the agenda that he's following.
Yeah, the problem is they're too terrified. I mean, Rebecca, I'll come to the political way that we can do this in a moment, because I think you'll both have fascinating insights on that in terms of UKIP and Reform UK. But how do you just feel about Calvin personally, the fact that as a strong, principled, religious man, he no longer feels safe here? Isn't that horrible?
Yeah, I mean, I do find it quite sad. I get it, actually. You know, and one of the reasons why I did resign from politics, and I've been so quiet for maybe the last I shouldn't say that in this segment talking about Calvin. In the last 6-7 months I've been so quiet is because I feel such despair with politics and with the country, and that it feels so hopeless. So I get it. I know where he's coming from. I'd be interested to know where he's going. But yeah, no, what else can you do right now? Because, you know, Ben's obviously talking about that the country is slow to wake up. Yeah, completely true. You know, at what point is everybody going to wake up and go, oh, crikey? We were saying this long before the general election. We were telling everybody that would listen, you're going to get Labour, it's going to be worse. Guess what? It's worse. We told you so. But why are people not there yet? Why are they nowhere near there? And when will they get there?
Calvin went a little bit further in his video. Watch this.
At the moment in England, it feels very much that there are so few of us that we're on our own. And so let's pray that more people wake up to what's going on. That's a bit of personal news. So let's move on to a prayer. I want to specify that I love the United Kingdom. I am half English. I love England. I love this nation with all of my heart, and I want it to do better. But at the moment, it's not a safe place politically. The politicians are going to clamp down on us and arrest us.
And Lawrence Fox, who is Calvin's close friend, co-host of Fox and Father, posted after Calvin's announcement, in a country that hadn't been taught to hate itself and wasn't upside down, Calvin Robinson would be used as a role model for young people. Instead, he has been attacked from every angle for being a man of principle, even fired by the so-called free speech TV GB News for displaying a vanishingly rare quality on the right: loyalty. Appalling treatment from a bunch of controlled opposition cosplay freedom fighters. And Rebecca, it's interesting because Calvin has just taken up a role as the chief spokesman for your former party, UKIP. Do you think there is the chance of this popular political movement that Ben speaks about on the right, or is it impossible with so many splinter groups?
He's done what? This is the first time.
Yeah. He's now the chief spokesman for UKIP.
Stop it.
Yeah. Why are you so surprised?
No.
That's a coup for UKIP, isn't it?
What on earth is he thinking? He has fully lost all leave of his senses. He has taken up.
But you were deputy leader.
Yes, I was, and I left for a whole lot of reasons that I have declared to everybody. UKIP is an absolute dead dog that needs to fold. What is Calvin doing, involving himself in a party that, in my personal opinion, has got goodness? I'm flabbergasted.
I've left you speechless. I've left you speechless. That never happens. Okay, well, Ben Habib, what do you make of that? I mean, obviously, you are still a member of Reform UK, but you would argue you can't actually be a proper member of Reform UK. No, I read your brilliant article earlier today.
Issue. Yeah.
Yeah, and I read your brilliant article today. I think it was on, was it Conservative Home that it was on? But yes. Very, very strong piece where you are starting to praise the fact that Reform UK seems to be listening to you. You have been very forthright in terms of the need for the party to democratise. It has to be more than just a one-man band. You say no matter how brilliant that man is, it can't just be Farage's party. So where can this popular movement come from? Is it Reform UK?
I absolutely think it is Reform UK. Reform UK has in its palms at the moment the future of the United Kingdom. It can save the United Kingdom. Its position should not be underestimated. It is now polling miles ahead of the Tories, and Labour's popularity is going to fall. It's not inconceivable that Reform UK may top the Westminster poll quite soon. And with that comes great responsibility for the leadership, in particular, of Reform UK. The nation will be looking to that leadership to deliver them from the dystopia into which Starmer and the Tory government before him have taken us. And so I really hope Nigel, Richard, Zia Youssef and others can rise to the task, understand that this cannot be an insurgency. It can't just be shouting at the sidelines. They've got to get serious. They've got to make sure they have all the branches that they're talking about. They professionalize in the way they're discussing, that they get the best candidates. It's all about candidates. Get the best candidates coming forward, get the best policies for the United Kingdom, and allow these to float up to the top of the leadership, and that the leadership itself is kept honest by having the ability for the people who are members of the party to remove them. That is a basic form of governance. And if Reform can rise to that challenge, money will come its way, further popularity will come its way. It'll be in a virtuous circle, a virtuous self-reinforcing circle. And it could then form the next government. And we may then be saved. And so this is a pivotal moment in politics. Has Nigel and the senior team at Reform got the ability to deliver this country the redemption that it so badly needs?
And have you spoken to Nigel at all personally since leaving as deputy?
No.
Okay.
There's been a bit of public pressure, as you might have seen. Yeah. From me, I mean.
Yeah, no, indeed. And that's the problem, isn't it? Uniting the right. It is a big problem, Rebecca. You tried when you were at UKIP, you had this idea of somehow bringing all the parties together, Reclaim and the SDP. It's difficult.
But it's not possible. Let's put it that way. I really tried. I really tried to get Ben as my leader as well. We did. We had a lovely time. He's one of the best people I actually met in politics, and obviously Ben was taken out of his position, which I find absolutely desperately sad, and I was really upset by it actually.
A lot of people were.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Thank you.
But obviously, the way that he has just spoken about reform shows exactly the character of Ben that I know. That he's an absolute true gentleman. So well done, and I commend everything you did, and I commend everything that you say now, because I agree with you. I think that reform is probably the only option left. Uniting the right is never going to happen. Like I've said, UKIP need to fold. Heritage are just not a thing, really. ADF, the same. And a few others. Reform do have the traction, they do have the motion, but I think Ben was right when he obviously left his position of saying that it does need to become more democratic, and it does, because that's what politics in this country is all about. So if they get that little bit fixed, yes, I think that they stand a very strong possibility. They are the best competition out there, and the rest of the parties just need to leave them to it.
Yeah, well, look, I like the idea of you, Rebecca, Father Calvin, Ben Habib, all under this Reform UK banner. I think what's interesting is that we all feel like Reform is the best organ for it. Farage is the best leader. He has that charisma.
Which organ, Dan?
Well, indeed, and maybe that's.
What was that?
I couldn't.
Oh, you don't want to know. That wasn't the right word to use, was it? It certainly wasn't right. I meant to use the word vehicle, and for some reason the word organ came out, and that can go to all sorts of places. Yeah. Anyway, on that note, our two amazing 2 ICs for now: former UKIP Deputy Leader Rebecca Jade, former Reform UK Deputy Leader Ben Habib. So brilliant to have you both back. Thank you both very much. Now, do stand by. Major breaking royal news. Prince Harry in the UK for this awkward reunion with Prince William at their uncle's funeral. Lady Colin Campbell, she's up in just 1 minute, so do not go anywhere. First, though, what's so important about being independent is that I'll only ever tell you about products that I use and truly believe in and think can improve your lives. That's why I'm delighted to talk to you today about Verso. Look, I've got it here on the table. Absolutely beautiful products, so perfectly packaged as well. And as you may know, I've entered my 40s, and the importance of staying healthy as I age has become really critical for me. So after a stressful year, I decided to focus on prioritizing my health, which led to me taking Verso every morning, because I was looking for something that could help reverse aging, but that was backed up by solid evidence. And that's where Verso is so effective. It's called Cellbean. That's the main product. It has scientifically proven ingredients that fight the effect of aging by increasing NAD+ levels, which is the stuff that powers every cell in your body. Now, I've been taking the product for a number of months now, right at the start of my day, and it has been genuinely transformative. I have found fasting easier and have lost fat. I'm eating less too, believe it or not, because you know I love my food. But the team at Verso tell me that's due to its blood sugar regulation effects, which lead to fewer cravings. I'm sleeping better as well, which is a really positive thing. So this has taken years off my life, this product, Verso. And Verso also publishes third-party testing from each batch produced to guarantee you are getting what you paid for. And I'm very excited to say that Verso has an amazing offer today. If you head right now to buy.ver.so/outspoken, you will save 15% off your first order. All you need to do is enter the coupon code OUTSPOKEN at checkout. The link is going to be in the show notes on YouTube and Rumble right now. It's already there, in fact, but I will repeat that address for you: buy.ver.so/outspoken. Use the coupon code OUTSPOKEN. You won't regret it. But back to the show now, and it's time for our Royal Masterminds. And Lady Colin Campbell is back with me live from Castle Goring on another major day of royal news, because it was revealed overnight that despite his team briefing that he wouldn't attend the funeral of his uncle, Sir Robert Fallows, Harry did turn up, leading to a very awkward reunion with Prince William. The pair are said to have sat apart at the back of the church in Norfolk and didn't actually talk to each other. So what's going on? Well, a royal source tells me it's too little too late. The damage is done. But does Lady C know better? What did you make of this?
Well, Dan, if I'm not mistaken, and by the way, hello, my dear. Lovely to see you.
Hello, great to see you too.
If I'm not mistaken, Harry actually was clever because he said he wasn't going to the funeral, and he didn't attend the funeral. He attended the small local rural memorial service.
Aha.
So there's that aspect to it. And my understanding is that, you know, the ship has sailed, and there's absolutely no way that there's going to be a rapprochement between William will not have a rapprochement with Harry. Of course, Harry has now figured out that it's in his interest to have a rapprochement with William. But my understanding is that as far as William is concerned, he's seen Harry rather too clearly for what Harry is. And Harry has changed dramatically under Meghan's influence, and William doesn't want to know. Also, William has to protect his family. Remember, there were huge problems between Meghan and Catherine, and Meghan has targeted Catherine. Let's not forget that.
Totally.
She didn't only target her before the wedding, she targeted her since the wedding. And, you know, there's also the question of the way Charlotte was treated.
Yes. Well, let's just be honest about it, Lady C. I mean, she made Charlotte cry. Meghan made Charlotte cry. It's just awful. She's a young child.
3 years old she was. 3 years old. But, you know, a scorpion stings. It's in its
No, but a 3-year-old, come on. I know it's stressful before a wedding. I understand that. I even understand that tensions may have been high with Catherine because of everything that was going on with Thomas Markle. But come on, you keep it away from your gorgeous 3-year-old niece. And I understand why Catherine found that unforgivable.
Well, so do I. I mean, you know, I've forgiven people who've injured me, but I've never forgiven people who have injured my children.
Totally.
Somebody who was a friend of mine for 35 years died about 2 months ago. And I didn't speak to her for the last 10 years of her life because she did something with my children that I absolutely did not like. And I told her, I said, you know, Renata, I'd forgive you if it were just me, but I'll never forgive you for what you've done because you have targeted my children whom you've known all their lives. I said, and that's unforgivable. And I think William and Catherine pretty much feel the same way. You can't take a chance on your children's security and your children's well-being. You just can't. And, you know, little things cut deep with children. And my understanding is that the whole situation is beyond redemption. And it's no surprise to me that William will not speak to Harry. And why should he speak to Harry? I mean, Harry has thrown in his lot with Meghan, and that's all there is to it. I think there could be the possibility of a patched up appearance of a relationship if Meghan were out of the picture. But unless Meghan is out of the picture, I would be very surprised that there's any chance of any rapprochement at all. And William, I understand, doesn't want to have anything to do with his brother. It's as simple as that.
No, and of course,
what have you heard?
Well, no, indeed, because of course he was so relieved. William was so relieved when he knew that Harry wasn't going to attend the Duke of Westminster's wedding. And so it would have been highly disappointing for William to learn that Harry was actually travelling over. But I think where you're completely right is that Harry's motivation behind all of this is cynical anyway. And that's what angers me with all of the people saying, oh, it's time to forgive, it's time to forgive. It's like, no, Harry is only now wanting forgiveness, wanting a reunion, wanting to patch stuff up because things are going so badly for him in America. And the problem is, he made his choice. And there were times when he could have turned back, Lady C. Like if you think about the publication of Spare, it still would have been possible for him to have received his book deal and got all of the money without him trying to portray William as some sort of violent bully and without him trying to portray Catherine, and I'm sorry to use the words, but as some sort of bitch, because everyone knows that William isn't a bully and Catherine isn't a bitch. It doesn't mean they are perfect human beings. No one is perfect, but they're certainly not that. And I think Harry's never tried to throw any form of olive branch when it mattered. And it doesn't matter now because it's too late. Because let's be honest, the damage is done.
But also, let's remember, Harry has not once denied amid scabies claims about Catherine
nope, not once.
Or the king. He's not denied it. So why would William be eager to? And it's just not going to happen. And it's very easy in structured, let's use that word, in structured environments for people to not speak to each other, and they function in a civil manner despite totally ignoring each other's existence. I mean, I'm an old hand at that. I mean, I didn't speak to my mother for 20 years.
Oh, I know. And you wrote about it.
And onlookers wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
But why would William forgive Harry when Harry has not asked for forgiveness? Let's remember that as well. Forgiveness is based upon remorse. If you do not express remorse, why would your victim forgive you? Because that is an invitation to an abuser to abuse you another time. It's all very good and well for people to say, oh, William should forgive him. Why would William forgive him? Has Harry expressed regret? Has Harry expressed remorse? Has Harry said, oh, all of this was a terrible mistake? He absolutely hasn't. He has in fact been leaking separately that he wants an apology. So it's almost, it's like a battered wife is supposed to apologize to her husband because he punched her in the face. I mean, I'm sorry, that's not how life works.
No, indeed, it's really not. I think William, though, has the strength of character, as you say, to not even worry about it now. He's made the decision. I have more concern about the emotional manipulation that Harry is putting his father through, remembering his father's in a vulnerable situation when it comes to his health. And what's so interesting about this to me, Lady C, but you may have a different take on it, is that Harry has only really started to realise that he has lost his father's trust once Charles stopped taking his calls. And so once that happened, because it also means that the money tap is off, potentially for good, Harry is now making this real effort to try and show contrition to Charles. Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury, is putting all of this pressure on Charles on behalf of Harry, and I also don't trust the Archbishop. I'm sorry, I don't, because he is team Harry and Meghan. He is team woke. And I just have the feeling that Charles might think, oh, I need an easier life, and, you know, I've only got a few more years left. And that's my concern. Not so much William, but my concern is Charles giving in.
Well, you know, if the king gives in some respects, you can understand it. He's not going to be around forever. And as his end begins to approach, he might want to square things away. But that doesn't mean that William is obliged to jump on that bandwagon. And also, I think people underestimate the king's strength of character. He has a very stubborn streak in his nature, and he may be compassionate and forgiving and really quite airy-fairy in many ways. And, you know, very much like his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, Queen Mother, he's sentimental and he's led by his emotions. But just as how his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, was a real toughie, don't think Charles isn't a toughie as well. I mean, look at how he hung in there when there was tremendous pressure put upon him to give up Camilla. He absolutely refused. And, you know, it's one thing for Charles to want to have as peaceful and as congenial a relationship with his errant son as possible. But that doesn't mean he's going to allow Harry to run riot. I don't think so. I think any rapprochement that it's going to be more apparent than real. It's going to be superficial as opposed to deep, except on the emotional level.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm not criticizing Charles, because what he's been doing lately has actually been incredible. Do you remember he moved the meeting with Harry when Harry flew over the day after his public cancer announcement, and he actually moved the meeting from Sandringham to Clarence House? I think my feeling from what I'm told is that it was Camilla's idea, and that was because they only wanted him to spend a very limited time with Harry. I think you told me, what was it? Something like 20 minutes or 12 minutes. Yes. Yeah. So that
the totality of 45 minutes, and he was with Paul for 12 minutes.
so that says it all. Charles is also stopping taking the phone call, so he's doing everything right at the moment. I just know that Harry has the ability to be very emotionally manipulative with his dad.
But Harry also has the ability to be very abusive with his father.
Yes.
And his father has had enough of it. You know, the constant screaming and carrying on and demanding, I'm a small brat of 2 years old, you've got to give me what I want. Doesn't work any longer. And so Harry's actually sort of run out of options. And I think he's going to find it a lot more difficult than people imagine to wangle his way back in, because there is a belief amongst certain segments, let me be decorous about this, that with Harry, it's all about opportunism. It's all about what he can get out of the situation. It's about the fact that he's failing in the United States of America, and he needs his father's help in some ways. But Charles, my understanding, is not prepared to be used by Harry. He's prepared to have a full father-son relationship based upon sound psychological and Christian principles, but not to be used and abused by Harry. And when Harry rings up and screams and carries on, it's not resulted in Charles loosening the purse strings. It's resulted in Charles cutting the phone line. So, I mean, I think the King's doing things very well, but also, I think there's an element of opportunism with both Harry and Meghan where, and I want to be careful how I put this down, because I know it's a very delicate matter. If Charles's lifespan is more finite than optimists would hope it was, Harry and Meghan are both astute enough to have faced the fact that they better make hay while the sun shines, because when William is on the throne, there is no prospect of them being able to wangle and maneuver and manipulate, because Harry has some power over Charles because he is his son. And remember, Harry and Charles got along a lot better than William and Charles got along. They had a far more congenial relationship, and they have a basically naturally far more comfortable personality with each other. Harry used to be a lot more emotional and a lot less abrasive than he is now. And he's a lot more mercenary now than he used to be. And so in some ways, the personal aspects that he had with his father that made the relationship closer, he has chucked out of the window. And it's not a good scenario from his point of view going forwards. I mean, abuse hasn't worked, so he better try something else. But I think he and Meghan will both find it very difficult to be eating humble pie, or to in any way, shape or form begin to be as mature and as decent as they should be, and as appreciative. They're acting as if they are victims of a cruel father and father-in-law, and a cruel institution, and a cruel nation, and a cruel family, when the absolute opposite is the truth. They are two of the most privileged, spoilt, indulged people on earth. I mean, where do they get off thinking that because they only have 99.9% more than everybody else, that they are victims? I mean, they're not peasants in Somalia. They're not child laborers in India or in Colombia.
Indeed. Now, let you see, just before we move to the after show, I have to talk about my family for just 1 second, because let me show you this, Lady C. My beautiful niece, Ivy Dan, who is 2 years old, has made me, and I'll just show it here, has made me some beautiful artwork for my new studio, which you can see there in the corner. And look at this, Lady C. She also painted me some beautiful pictures, which I've got here. That's a dinosaur, and then a monster. And you're not going to believe this, Lady C. Look at Ivy Dan, right? I'll show you her now. She's growing up. She's looking absolutely beautiful. Oh, there she is. I just love her so much. And there she was doing the painting. Very talented young girl. But she looks identical to me at the same age. So, Lady C, that is me on the left, and that is her on the right. Can you believe that? We look like the same person.
Well, Dan, I suppose if you'd been a girl, you would have been pretty. But you're a good-looking guy in any event. But, I mean, you have very regular features. So, but she's a lovely child. I mean, you are really lucky. You have a wonderful family.
Well, I do. And you obviously have met them, which is great. And I just also have to say a huge happy Father's Day to my dad, because do you know that Father's Day in New Zealand, where he lives, is on the 1st of September. So it is this Sunday. For some reason, New Zealand has a different Father's Day to the UK. So big happy Father's Day to the greatest dad in the world, and he will be watching as soon as he wakes up in New Zealand. So thank you so much, Dad. But look, stand by, Lady C, because you know it's very important to me that we have a safe space not patrolled by big tech, where censorship and control runs deep. So that's why we have www.outspoken live. It's our membership section where you will get half an hour of extra content every single day. So what I'm going to do at this stage is come off YouTube, come off Rumble, move to our own platform to continue our conversation in the uncancelled after show. The address is www.outspoken.live, but if you can't remember that, it is in our show notes too. We're back live every weekday at 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you. Have an amazing weekend, but hopefully I'll see you on the after show in just 1 minute with the irrepressible, incomparable Lady Colin Campbell.